Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, the best place to be wherever you are on your wealth journey right now. Today I want to talk about ways to be present, mindfulness and being present in the moment. And it's a concept that I've always really struggled with, to be honest with you, because I'm always so busy. Now I don't know about you guys, but I have got all kinds of stuff that I do. Obviously I run a cleaning company, I have property investments, I go and speak and train down in London, and I've got so much going on all the time. And for me, mindfulness was always incredibly difficult. It was a really hard thing to do, to actually be present in the moment. Because mindfulness is about being intentionally present. It's not about thinking about the future or thinking about the past, which is generally what I tend to find myself doing more often than not, particularly because I'm so busy. So thinking about things like running my cleaning company, I will think to myself, oh, what's so-and-so client needs this, how do I deal with that straight away? So-and-so client needs that, how do I deal with that? What's going to happen? Then it'll be things like, oh, I've got to make a cake for my church fete next week, or something else is going on like that. And it's incredibly difficult to just be present because you've got all these thoughts and feelings going on and whirling around in your mind. So it's incredibly hard to actually be mindful, and it's something that I've struggled with pretty much my entire life. I don't know about you guys, but I constantly find myself thinking about the future, and it's like it's a race to get there, like it's a race to get to the end. And actually, you don't really want life to be like a race to get to the end, do you? Because we only get one life, and if we're racing to get to the end of it, then that's not going to stand anybody in good stead. So we need to be more mindful and more present. Now, I don't know about you guys, but certainly the coronavirus pandemic has actually forced me to slow down and to stop and think more about these things, and it's forced me to be a lot more present. And what I'm a little bit concerned about is that obviously once the lockdown finishes, obviously it's easing slightly now, but when the lockdown finishes, it might well be that I can't be present again, and I don't really want that to happen. So I've kind of created this video to share with you the things that you can do to be mindful and present, but also whilst you're busy doing things, because I'm a busy person, you're a busy person. We want to remain busy and productive, but we also need to make sure that we have time for ourselves and to nurture our minds as well. Now, mindfulness is an issue that I've struggled with for years, and I think it's because I've often had this limiting belief that if I stop what I'm doing, then that's a bad thing because I'm stagnating, I'm being lazy perhaps. And it's not necessarily that you are lazy or you're stagnating, but for me, I kind of found myself beating myself up because that was the way that I was feeling about it all. And it wasn't until I went on holiday with my husband in 2016. We had a fantastic holiday to Malaysia. And when we went on this holiday, I found myself in the airport at Heathrow, and I had my phone out and I was still contacting people and making sure that everything was running smoothly, because I felt that I had to continually be doing things. And it wasn't until my husband, he'd kind of relaxed already into his holiday, he'd stopped work earlier on that day. And it wasn't until he sort of said to me, look, you need to stop, turn your phone off, relax. And I thought to myself, gosh, I do, but I was still honestly on the aeroplane, and it wasn't until the lady came down the aisle and said to me, look, you've got to turn your phone off, that I actually did turn my phone off, because I was constantly doing. And when I did turn my phone off, I had to stop. And that's kind of what the coronavirus has done for us all, isn't it? It's kind of made us have to stop what we're doing and think about things a lot more. And obviously the moment I turned my phone off, I started being in the present and being in the now. And I had a whale of a time on holiday, and it was just brilliant. And I thought to myself, how can I bring that back? How can I actually continue to be mindful, but whilst still being productive? And I think that's quite a challenging thing. So one of the things that I did do on that holiday was to give myself permission. And I think that's the thing that a lot of us don't actually do. We don't allow ourselves that time, that space. And I think that's really, really important. So I wanted to say to you all, give yourselves permission to actually stop. And if you can't stop, well, then there are still some mindfulness things that you can do, even whilst keeping going. Now, the reason that I'm out in my garage today is that you can see here that I'm creating these. I've had an old whiskey barrel here, and I'm creating some garden planters. And one thing that you can do to keep yourself mindful but also busy is to do some kind of craft project. So it could be something like this, it could be art, it might be design. A friend of mine recently said she started working with clay again for the first time in 4 years. So whatever it is that you enjoy doing that makes you feel peaceful, I would say definitely have a go at that. And if we look at my barrels here, obviously I've done a lot of work to them already. They're almost finished. I'm just doing the metal work now. And it's just lovely to be able to feel the wood, feel the metal, smell the paint. Being in the moment is a very sensual experience. You want to use as many senses as you can. Obviously don't eat the paint or anything, but you know, it's the smell of the paint, it's the sound that the lid makes when it pops off the paint pot, it's the action of the brush strokes and how it actually goes onto what you're doing as well. So it's really, really lovely to be able to create something, and then obviously at the end of it you've got something you can call your own and that you've created. But at the same time you're actually being mindful in the moment and thinking about what it is that you're doing. And when I do a project like this one, I try not to think quite so much about what it's going to look like at the end, but I try to think about what it's like right now, the actual motion of the brush strokes and what the paint looks like and feels like going onto the thing that I'm painting. And it's actually a very, very peaceful process. It's a very satisfying process as well. You know, you kind of have a sense of what it's going to be like at the end, but at the same time it's just lovely to get that paint on and take something that was actually quite scuzzy to start with and just turn it into something beautiful. Is lovely. I approach my property investing in exactly the same way. Get something rotty and horrible, turn it into something beautiful. But being in the present with it. So try to use as many senses as you can. The feel of the wood, you know, the heat or the cold of what it is that you're doing. For me here I can smell the whiskey because these were real whiskey barrels once upon a time, so I can smell the whiskey still. And it's just lovely. Now, if you're not a very crafty person, you could try colouring. So there are plenty of colouring books nowadays for adults. You can get colouring books with flowers, you can get mandalas, you can get spiritual ones, religious ones. You know, have a look on Amazon. There are plenty of colouring books now out there for adults, which is absolutely brilliant. So if you're not a particularly artistic person, but you don't mind colouring something in, again, that's something that you can be really mindful about. And when I'm colouring in, what will happen is that if I've got particularly fine areas that I need to colour, I'll find myself focusing on my breath and making my breathing slower, because obviously I don't want to go out of the lines. And it's things like that that can really help you to ground you and be in the present. And again, with your colouring, you know, focus on what the bits that you're doing now rather than what it's going to look like when it's finished. And again, that will help you to really stay in the present moment with the thing that you're doing. Next is dog walking. Now, I've learned a lot from my dog since we've had him. He's going to be 3 next month, and I've learned so much just from having Tico, because dogs don't have a sense of the future. They can remember what happened in the past, but very much they are centred in the here and now. Now they might be running along, now they might be smelling this particular bush, you know, whatever it might be that they're doing, they're always in the now. And Tico has really, really helped to ground me in the present. And even if you haven't got a dog, you can certainly go for some very nice walks. I suggest if you're in an urban area, try and go to a park or somewhere that's a bit more peaceful, maybe with some trees, that kind of thing. And just listen, and again, use all your senses to see what's going on. You obviously have a look to see what you can see, wildlife, any trees, flowers, what do you notice about those things. And then things like smell. What do the flowers and trees smell like? Can you hear anything? The bird song in particular, I love listening to the birds. I can hear, as I'm sitting in my garage now, I can hear some birds going on. We have skylarks in this area, which is absolutely gorgeous. What things can you see? What can you smell? Again, when you're walking, you could potentially bring spirituality into it as well. I generally find that humming a hymn tune or some kind of Teze chant, something like that, is just really nice and uplifting and spiritual. So you could do that if you wanted to. but it's more about focusing on the present and focusing on what you can hear, see, smell, touch as well, depending on what you're doing. Gardening is a brilliant thing to do as well. So gardening is really, really good for the soul. Growing things, it's just amazing. And I find generally when I'm working with plants and soil, there's very much a sense of the here and now. It's that tiny seed that you put in, waiting for it to germinate. It's just a lovely thing. You feel very grounded when you're gardening, I find. Things that I'm talking about are things that you've probably experienced during lockdown. It might be that you've tried some of these things for the first time, and I do encourage you to carry on with them after lockdown is finished. Keep going with everything. Exercise is another thing that you can do mindfully as well. For me, I like to do my exercise first thing in the morning to get it out of the way. When I'm doing my exercise, I'm very mindful about it. I like to use kettlebells. They're my absolute favourite. I've used them for years and years, and I like the feel of the iron in my hand. I then concentrate on what's happening in my body when I'm using them. So it might be that I'm doing my kettlebell swings, I'm concentrating on my core. It might be that I'm doing a press, for example, and focusing on my abs. I might be doing a Turkish get-up and focusing on my breathing. So think about mindfulness when you're going about your activities of exercise. Of course, you can practice mindfulness with actual meditation and yoga. And with actual meditation and yoga, it's again something I've struggled with for quite a number of years. Again, if you're meditating, give yourself permission to actually turn off. One of the hardest things I found about meditation, and still find about meditation, is that I find it very hard to not think about the thoughts that are going on. With the, oh my goodness, the cake next week, and oh my goodness, this client, that client. I find it so difficult to actually switch that off. And one of my yoga teachers, when I was going to a yoga class, she said to me, try and focus on something. She said either focus on being in a garden or a beach somewhere that you feel peaceful and tranquil. And she said if that doesn't work, she said try focusing on the image of a flickering candle in your mind. And I found the flickering candle worked really, really well. So whenever I'm trying to do some meditation now, I will always just focus on the flickering candle in my mind, and that will really, really help. And another thing that I like to do when I'm meditating is to use crystals as well. So I've got rose quartz that I use when I'm meditating. It's a lovely rose quartz, just a handheld one, and it's just nice and tactile, and it brings me back down to earth, keeps me in the now, because again I'm using my senses, touch in this particular case, and I really enjoy that. It makes me feel very peaceful. There are also lots of other daily activities that you can do with a sense of mindfulness and staying in the present, including simple things like just brushing your teeth, your daily routine in the morning, when you have a shower. Again, use all of your senses. Think about the way that the water feels, what does the toothpaste taste like, all of those kinds of things. Even very simple things that we do every day, like having a cup of tea, for example. The whole tea making process can be very mindful and bring you into the present, from boiling the kettle to pouring the tea to actually what it's like drinking the tea. Try to use all your senses again. Think about what does the tea taste like? What does it feel like going into my body? What does it smell like? Can I feel it? Is it hot? What does the mug feel like that I'm holding? All of those things can keep you very, very present. Give yourself permission to relax, and if you are stretched for time, set yourself a time limit and say, I'm going to give myself permission for the next 10 minutes to be able to sit and relax with this mug of tea, or doing this painting, or colouring this book, or whatever it is that you're doing. There are so many things that you can do to be mindful every single day. So I'm really interested in what you guys do to keep mindful. Obviously I've shared with you some of the things that I do. Do drop me a comment underneath this video to let me know what you do, because I'm always interested in learning. I'd like to try some new things as well. So do drop me a comment. Do watch the next 2 videos coming up as well, because they will definitely help with your wealth journey, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that already for plenty more videos just like this one. And in the meantime guys, do stay safe and keep mindful, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.